Thanks everyone for joining today. And thanks to Lamar and the learning team for helping to organize this through the Uplift series of events. I know within IGP, we have a lot of interest in kind of understanding the different AI tools that are emerging and how we can better utilize them in their work. So super excited today to have Andy and Garrett with us from the Enterprise AI team, leading an AI roadshow. So dig deep into how American Red Cross can use AI tools we have and the tools that are available to us. So handing it over to them.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks everyone for being here. Garrett and I are very excited to be with you today and very much looking forward to the session. As Dan mentioned, we work for Enterprise AI within the mission-driven technology or ID team, specifically in the AI and data governance space. And doing sessions like this is a lot of what we do, and we enjoy it, and we're really happy to be here. And while I share my screen, I'm going to hand it over to I'm going to share my screen and hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Andy. So welcome, everyone. My name is Garrett Messer. I've been with the organization 7 now. And just wanted to give you a little highlight. We've got some activities going on this week on our Viva Engage page for AI at ARC, a great way to connect about and stay up to date on things going on in AI as we communicate different tips and different things within our organization. But as of tomorrow, we are going to be doing a kind of celebration or appreciation day for World AI Day. And we've got a number of activities that we've got listed, and I've put it in the chat as well, that we've got Dwayne Bell, our VP of IT Engineering, who's going to be doing an opening keynote at 1 p.m., as well as a closing keynote by our VP of Enterprise AI, Brian Shepard, at 4 p.m. And if you go to that page for the Red Cross at World AI Appreciation Day, there's a number of other activities that we're going to do throughout the day tomorrow. Fun little day. So again, you get time and get on some of the images and fun.
All right, great, Garrett. Thank you for that. And let's go ahead and dive into this roadshow. So here's our agenda. As we head out on a roadshow, here's what we've got planned for you guys. So the first two topics are an AI overview, just generally, background information about what AI is generally, but we'll also talk about that specifically through a Red Cross lens. Okay. And as part of that, we will cover risks that are associated with AI use and various Red Cross policies that exist to help mitigate those risks. So that part, that's the opening, probably 25, 30 minutes, right? It's more conceptual. You guys are welcome to ask questions at any time. Raise a hand, put something in chat, just speak up, whatever works for you. But then after that, we'll get into the more interactive part of the session where you guys will be doing things, on your machines as we go. And we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on Copilot, right? And that'll take the last 50, 55 minutes of the session, give or take. And we'll start with just some Copilot basics, get everybody leveled up on, where the secure version of Copilot is, some fundamental things around Copilot, and we'll cover prompting for everyday efficiency. And we've got a number of exercises and things for you to do along the way. And then we'll dive into some resources. So by way of an AI overview, so we want to, before we even talk about, define AI or talk about different types of AI, it's important to think about and talk about how the Red Cross is thinking about AI, because organizations take on AI for lots of different reasons, right? And the reason that the Red Cross is interested, the primary reason the Red Cross is interested in AI, is we believe it will multiply our mission. We think we're going to be able to do more, and we think it can do a number of things. It can boost our capacity. It can help us better predict constituent needs, some process optimization. Again, SAFD, you make data-informed decisions all the time. We think AI will help get you to those decisions faster, closer to real time. And this is important too, is that the one thing we know about AI, there are lots of unknowns, right? about AI. One thing we know for sure is that it will not replace our humanity. You know, everybody gets that, right? Understand, we're just staff that identify those strengths, right? And that's why we have sessions like this one. And, you know, at the end of the day, at its core, this investment in the IT organization is clearly making, right? But both financially and in terms of, you know, effort, time, and so forth. It's an investment in our people and the work that we do and a commitment to it, right? So that's how the organization is coming at AI. And that, you know, leads us into, you know, what the heck is AI? And so, you know, there's more than one definition, right? This is one we like to use. And we talk about AI being the capability of computer systems or algorithms that are designed to do two very powerful things, right? The first one is to learn with little to no human intervention, right? And that in and of itself is powerful. But then to generalize that learning to new data, you know, which amplifies the power of the first thing we talked about, which is learning with little to no human intervention. And it, you know, I'm guessing that all of us on this session have had some experience or exposure to AI, if not at work, then in your personal life. Yeah, it's powerful, right? It really can be, you know, studying sometimes the that it can do. And it's, you know, what we've been doing lately. It was a couple of years ago that ChatGPT kind of came on the scene. You guys may remember that when suddenly in the news there's all this talk about ChatGPT, and we all kind of got exposed to what's called generative AI, right? And that's where you can, you know, go in with your natural language, whatever that language is, and you can interact with a digital assistant or a chat bot, and it can do all kinds of stuff for you, right? It can generate, you know, text, it can generate images, it can summarize a book or a white paper, it can classify things, bucket things out, do data analysis, does all kinds of stuff. And this was immediately, you know, a couple of things that strike me about generative AI, whether we're thinking about Copilot here at the Red Cross, or maybe you're using Claude or ChatGPT or something in your personal life, is that it's both easy to get to, right? Easy to find. There's not a high bar to entry to using it, and it can be especially powerful, right? And what's happened as a result of that, and you may have seen this in your day-to-day life, I've certainly seen it in the conversations I have out in the world, is that these days a lot of people talk about AI, and what they mean is generative AI, right? They're thinking about, you know, ChatGPT or something like that. The reason we start here, you know, when we're talking about AI, is that entry into AI leaves out some really important stuff, right? Because before there was generative AI, there was what we now call traditional AI. This was around years and years before generative AI, and it was doing really important work, and it's doing really important work for us today at the Red Cross. And it's different from generative AI. Traditional AI, typically machine learning models, we'll talk more about that in a second. It's generally focused on understanding why. It's all about predictions, and not all about, but it's often about predictions or forecasts. And it's different from generative AI. And then part of what we want to do this morning is make sure you have this more comprehensive sense of AI. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about generative AI first, because it's probably more familiar. If you've used Copilot, if you've used ChatGPT, if you've engaged with some organization or company's customer service chatbot, maybe with, you know, different levels of frustration of AI, right? You can go in, talk to it in your natural voice, type in with your natural voice, and it will, you know, respond to you and potentially do things for you. And people are using this for lots of things. Okay, and we've got some videos. We'll share with you the link out to our Viva Engage page and our Copilot Everyday videos that show your colleagues, you know, things they're doing with Copilot from kind of a personal productivity perspective. And this is a very common use of Copilot at the Red Cross is personal productivity stuff, right? Helping you write an email, helping you generate meeting notes, maybe helping you make sense of a data visualization or a spreadsheet, or you're brainstorming ideas for an upcoming meeting. There's just all kinds of things that you can do. And the idea is you can do some of these more mundane faster, more effectively. That opens up brain space, that opens up capacity for you to engage in the hard stuff or the interpersonal stuff. Maybe that frees up some more time for you to spend with a volunteer or with a client, or to solve that difficult vendor problem that you've been dealing with. Okay, so personal productivity is a common use case. It's not always, no, it doesn't stop there, right? There are other things we can do with Copilot. Garrett and I had an opportunity recently to help the Penn Jersey Biomed region. They were hosting this blood drive, eventually resulted in over 1,000 units of blood, so hats off to them. But they have to do some planning. I mean, they've got 2 shifts of staff, about 50 some people on each shift. Those in each shift, the staff are split across 2 pods, and they have to figure out where they're going to place these people and how can they do it in a way that's balanced by role and productivity, and can you keep teams together if you can, and can a person be in the same pod all day if they're working both shifts, and when should the breaks be? And they came to us and we put Copilot on the job, right? We started prompting Copilot to help them with this, and it did a nice job and saved them, they estimate, like 30 hours of work. Right. So it's, it can help with personal productivity, but it can do other things too. And it's got a lot of traction. If you're interested in how many people are using Copilot at the Red Cross, let me take you out here. We've got a dashboard for that. And, you can see in the 180 days between January 8th and July 6th of this year, we had over 16,000 active Copilot users. Those were people who submitted 1 or more prompts. All right. We had over 1,200 average daily active users. They submitted over 1.4 million prompts, and the average number of prompts per user was 87. Right. So Copilot has traction. People are using it more and more. And of course, we're going to spend some time with you guys this morning using it as well. But that's not the whole thing, right? People are using generative AI in other ways too. So, the marketing and communications team, some of you guys may have attended the Spotlight series session yesterday, where Rosie talked with Ronnie. So it was an IT marketing communications joint presentation. And she talked about how AI is important to them in marketing and communications. And one of the things that generative AI can do is really make sense of feedback that our organization gets, or comments that people make about us on social media and stuff like that. And this is a huge number, by the way. I mean, millions of surveys and social mentions. This is at an enormous scale, and it's at a scale that no one person, or even a team of people, would have a hard time going through that volume of feedback and figuring out how to bucket it, how to make sense of it, and what should we do in response to it. And so generative AI really helps with that. Okay, you can throw, and they don't use our shared version of Copilot for this. It pulls their throwing at them. Data, these enormous data, go through, do that analysis, and help them make sense of what we're hearing, so we can adjust accordingly. And then you've also got training services is leaning in. They're doing things in terms of generating exams, as well as for their call center support. They're using generative AI for these things as well. So the AI, a lot of use across the organization, personal productivity, team level projects, things like that. And you also see it in some of these broader contexts as well. Okay. All right. So hopefully that helps with generative AI. We're going to pivot now to traditional AI, which is probably going to be a little more foreign to some of you. But believe it or not, you've been using traditional AI, maybe even today. If you've used your GPS to get somewhere, that is a traditional AI tool, right? That's a really powerful traditional AI tool. if you've looked at Zillow or a similar tool to like gauge the value of your home or a home you're thinking about buying or what have you, that's a really powerful machine learning tool. So we are reliant on traditional AI and use it quite a bit in our day-to-day lives. And it's also in use, in a lot of places in the Red Cross, right? So one place is this home fire risk map. You guys are probably familiar with the home fire campaign like that. And AI AI is a drawer behind this home fire risk map, and what it does is it identifies the places that are most likely to A, have a house fire, and B, not have a smoke detector in the house. And that allows the teams to pick particularly high impact places to do their campaigns. And so that is traditional AI doing good work at the Red Cross today. Similarly, in biomed, oh, I see there's a hand up. Yeah, Christina.
Hi, yeah, quick question. You talked about levels of data there back on when we go to the sound the alarm piece.
Mhm.
Um, is is pulling in that data from where to generate the map? I know you talked about, for example, they're less likely to have a smoke alarm installed.
Mhm.
How is it pulling it in, or is that what we're telling it to do it to create the map?
Right. So I think for that one, and I can't give you the sources. If you go out and look at that map, and here, let me make a note to share the link for it. It'll probably give you the sources, but I know that among the things they rely on is just kind of census or demographic data across the U.S. and social vulnerability index. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay, okay.
So they rely on some of those kinds of sources. I do not know if they have any proprietary, like Red Cross specific sources that contribute to that, but they are definitely pointing it at. I think they also. I don't want to speak out of turn. They may also, well, actually, I'm sure they have access to some fire specific statistics as well.
Right.
So they've got a subset of verifiable, reputable sources that they rely on to feed that model.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking for this as we go into the biomed thing as well is if you could, as you continue to weave through how we direct the sources, like where AI is
Mhm.
pulling from in our version of Copilot versus
Yeah.
external versions like Anthropic or something.
Right, right. Yeah, in our version of Copilot, and we'll get to Copilot in a sec, but you raise a really good point. So our version of Copilot can see two things, two big classes of things. One is it can see publicly available stuff on the internet, right? So if it's something on the internet that's publicly available, doesn't require a login, it can potentially see that. If it's something on the internet that is behind a firewall, requires somebody to log in, it can't see it, right? So in our world, it can see redcross.org, but it can't see one source, right? It can also, though, see stuff that you share with it. So if you share a spreadsheet with it, if you share a PDF with it, if you share an email, the text of an email with it, it can see that as well. Is that making sense?
Mhm. No,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
helpful.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. No, no. Great question. Great question. And thanks for asking the first question. Um, all right, here's just another example of traditional AI doing work. This is a tool that the innovation team created actually several years ago. It's called a platelet calculator, and essentially what it does is, you guys know platelets are very important to our business, and they were finding time. The that they were taking wasn't as high quality as they like, and it was also taking a long time to program the procedure for individual patients. And so they came up with this AI-driven solution that standardized that programming procedure. It optimizes it for an individual donor, and it gets a more consistent product to manufacturing. And the net of that remains an annual increase of 100,000 units collected, right? Which is a substantial amount of revenue as well. So this is traditional AI doing good work at the Red Cross. Again, if any of you attended that Spotlight Series session yesterday, Rosie talked about the mods team that lives within marketing and communications, and they've got 30 odd machine learning models doing this kind of predictive work, predictive and similar kinds of work to help us do what we do more effectively. Okay, so traditional AI, it's doing important stuff at the Red Cross today. And then, not to beat this to death, but to kind of wrap this up, it's also good to know that, behind this traditional AI and generative AI, driving all this is machine learning, right? And that's a term you'll hear. Machine learning can look at just huge amounts of data, throw models and algorithms at it, by patterns, and produce a result or prediction, right? And so, not even all these are in production, but I know that teams have looked at, for example, is a given whole blood donor, who's most likely to convert to being a platelet donor, right? Who that's donating blood is most likely to faint. Okay, these are the kinds of things that the traditional AI can do. But what happened is people kept developing this machine learning, right? Throwing additional horsepower at it, additional computing power at it, until it became, these neural networks, became this advanced form of machine learning known as deep learning. That allowed the development of these large language models that let us use the generative AI today, right? So traditional AI came first, that machine learning became more and more powerful. That allowed the development of generative AI. And a couple of key distinctions on this, and we'll put this traditional versus generative thing to bed. One is, on the traditional AI side, as powerful as that platelet calculator is, as good as that home fire risk map is, these models do one thing, right? It's a one-to-one relationship between these models and use cases. On generative AI, as you're probably aware, it's general purpose. As you will see even today, we're going to do a range of things with Copilot, right? So it can do all sorts of different things. The other big difference is, for traditional AI, that usually requires an expert to help you with that, right? You need to work with a data scientist to get a traditional AI model, a machine learning model cooking. Generative AI, any of us can do it, and we're all going to do it today. Okay, it simulates human reasoning, English, Spanish, whatever your native language is, that's your programming language, and you can do all kinds of amazing things in that way. So those are a couple of key distinctions. So, the takeaway is, we're using AI at the Red Cross, both traditional and generative, and it's doing good work for us. How it's being used across the organization, this graphic kind of helps with that. Enterprise-wide, anybody with a redcross.org email address or account can access our secure version of Copilot and can use generative AI. So that's the most commonly used tool at the Red Cross. Increasingly, various lines of business, various departments are finding AI features of existing tools like Salesforce or Adobe or Workday, I'm sorry, of ServiceNow. They're finding third-party AI features or separate AI tools that they're using, right? And so some of these, and this is just a small sample, people use those for translation services, brand monitoring, automated voiceovers, text extraction from images and forms. These teams find these features and tools, they take them through the appropriate channels, we'll talk about those in a second, to get them approved, and then they can use them. Right? So some of us find ourselves using tools like that as a part of our daily work. Okay. Here, kind of grayed out, or no or low code AI tools. These will ultimately be available and be used by like the BSI teams, HSBSI, for example, citizen developers. They're not out there yet, starting to do some proof of concept and evaluation, but they're really not in play yet here at the Red Cross. And then at the top, and this will always continue to happen, is custom development, right? And these are our data science teams working with lines of business and departments. We've talked about the home fire risk map, the platelet calculator. Receipt auditing is something that's happening today, right? We've got AI looking at, and this was custom development, looking at P-card transactions and flagging ones that are real outliers, that are out of compliance, and so forth. So there's, all of this stuff is happening today at the Red Cross, and they'll continue. And likely growth area, we can maybe talk about some other time, or these no-code tools or agentic AI kinds of solutions. So that's impressive, right? There's a lot going on. There's a lot of productivity happening. But as you guys know, use of AI brings risk with it, right? And we have to be smart about that. We can't, pretend that's not the case. We have to recognize and mitigate those risks. And when we're talking about AI risk, here are some of the most important ones. Okay. So one is bias, right? So these tools, they get trained on enormous data sets where they go out and they look at the internet. And there is bias baked in to the internet. There is bias baked in to some enormous data sets. And if that bias can show up in the use of AI tools, particularly in the responses that an AI tool gives you. One example I was reading about recently was a lot of human resource hiring kind of places are using AI more and more to screen candidates and so forth. And this one organization's their AI was automatically rejecting men over 60 or women over 55. Just, you got to go. I'm not including the men. Right. So that's just straight up bias coming as a result of an AI tool. So we have to be aware of this. We have to look out for this. As users of AI tools, we have to be alert to it and counter it if we see it. As an organization that goes out and buys AI tools or subscribes to AI tools or creates our own AI tools, we have to prevent it and work with vendors to prevent it as much as we can. Privacy risks are legitimate. If you're using the wrong version of AI and you put sensitive personal information in it or sensitive organizational information in it, you may find that information showing up to somebody else, in the form of an AI response. And that's why we'll make a big deal here very shortly about using the secure version of Copilot. Okay, so we have to keep our constituent data, our organizational data secure when we're using AI. Drift is a thing. Drift is kind of a term of art inside the AI world. These models get trained, right? They train them. And then one day the training stops and they release those models on the world, and the world continues spinning and things continue happening, right? And so the model gets further and further away from its training. And that's why they're releasing updated versions. That's among the reasons they're releasing updated versions of these models. But the point is, as that distance between when a model was trained and our use of that model, as that expands, the performance of the model degrades, right? The predictions that it makes might not be quite as effective. The advice that it conjures up may not be as applicable or effective as relevant. Loss of control, that's a thing that's tied to agentic AI when you let the AI go do things on your behalf. If we're not careful with that can go all kinds of wrong. There have been organizations who have had their entire databases erased by AI because it took over and it lost control. So if we are kind of leaning into the agentic AI, looking at it, we have to be really smart about that and build in the kinds of guardrails that prevent that. And then the last word on these risks, cybersecurity, malicious misuse, without going deep into that, you guys know the digital space can be scary with bad actors, even without AI. And with AI, there are just additional things that they can do and places that they can be dangerous. So these are real risks. The good news is at the Red Cross, we've got policies and guidance around this, right? And all of this is available out at our OneSource page, AI at the Red Cross. Oh, Christina, yes, please.
I was just going to say for the group, as someone who edited these documents, they went through a lot of work and a lot of stakeholders. And then again, we went through some more work. God bless Stacy. And so, and more to come. These will continue to come up for revision. So I was just highlighting your point of that. The front office, the board office is aware. The policy office is aware that there's constant changing and is continuing to work with the business unit to make sure that these are as updated as possible on this, but you should always pose questions to the business when you have more beyond this, because these are not every single question that you could come up with AI use, but large, governance and large kind of guidelines on AI policy.
Thank you, Christina, for glossing that, and also for your work on that. That's difficult work. And this policy on artificial intelligence was recently updated. And it's kind of the general policy. So anybody who's using AI for Red Cross work should get familiar with this policy. And to include, there's an appendix we'll look at in a second called Acceptable and Prohibited Uses of Generative AI that gives you some really brass tacks kind of things you can and can't do with generative AI. So this is a good policy for everyone. The AI governance procedure is a little nichier, right? If you're someone who might see an AI tool and want to use it or propose that your team or department use it, then this is the procedure you would go through to pursue that. And, to Christina's point about how this stuff's always changing, I mean, very recently, these guidelines on using real human avatars has been posted because, those are becoming more and more of a thing. So these policies are important. They're all available out of one source. So we recommend you get used to them. Again, the AI governance procedure may or may not be relevant specifically to you. Just a couple of key points, and then we're going to dive into to Copilot. On this policy in artificial intelligence, a couple of key things. This isn't everything. But one, just use approved systems for Red Cross work or on Red Cross machines, right? Just systems and models that we've approved. We've got to protect that sensitive Red Cross information. So that ties in tightly to that first one. We have to be aware of our data and take good care of it. If you're using generative AI for your day-to-day work and it gives you some bad information and you use that bad information, that's your responsibility, right? We can't say the AI did it. We have to own that. And again, if you're using generative AI, there is this appendix that I will happily show you. It is out here. And it's really gives you, here's what you can do with generative AI, and here's what you can't do, such as you can't alter Red Cross photos or videos or create an image with a Red Cross trademark or imagery, create disaster or other mission delivery images, right? So this is a really good document for you to get familiar with if you're using generative AI. AI governance, we won't go too deep on this one. There are 3 teams in play as a part of this procedure. The AI Governance Council, Supply Management, the Architecture Review Board all play a part. And remember, AI is great, AI is important, but data matters too, right? So you want to know your data, you want to have good quality data, good metadata with data owners. And we do have some courses on that we could point you to as well. We've got 3 data literacy courses, a yellow belt, a green belt, and a blue belt, and a data privacy course that we would point you to as well. All right, so that was a lot. That's kind of a quick and kind of intense introduction to AI at the Red Cross. We're going to shift gears over to Copilot now. But before we do, is there anything hanging? Does anybody have any questions about this broader AI stuff that we talked about before we open up Copilot? All right. If not, that's okay. So let's dive in. Let's get into Copilot. And I think it helps to start, we come at Copilot really from 3 perspectives, right? First is the functional. What can it do for you? And you can think of it as like a digital assistant, maybe as a collaborator that can help you be more productive. And we already talked about, it can do a lot of things for you, help you do them more quickly, so you can spend your time on things that, you and you alone, with your intellect and your background and your training can take on. But like any assistant, right, it's better at some things than others, and it can be wrong, right? So we have to check its work. It's not a flawless assistant. It's a tireless assistant. It's got that going for it, but it's not flawless, right? As a product, it happens to be Microsoft's generative AI tool, digital assistant. There are other such tools in the world, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and so forth. This is Microsoft's version. Okay, and this matters to us from a governance perspective because a secure version of Copilot, it's called Copilot Chat, has been approved for Red Cross work. Okay, so we can use this approved version of Copilot to do what we need to do for the organization, and that includes working with sensitive data, right? You can use client data as long as you're in that secure version of Copilot. Okay, so that's why it's so important to make sure you're in that secure version, right? And if you've never been here before, and also if you ever have trouble, sometimes people contact us and they say we're having trouble logging in, and typically we give them these instructions and they're fine, right? An easy way to get to the secure version of Copilot is just go to OneSource. And at the home page, there is a Copilot icon, just like there's a Concur icon or a Coupa icon. You click on that, it takes you to a page where you can click Access Copilot here. It'll take you into our secure version. Okay. Typically, you're already logged in to your account by that point. It doesn't prompt you to log in, but if it ever does, use your Red Cross credentials. If it ever asks you to choose an account type, you want to choose work or school. You never want to choose personal. And once you're in there, make sure you're in the secure version, right? That's the important thing. And how do you know you're in the secure version? Look out for this badge or shield up here in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, here's a little better look at it. So it's up there in the right. It's often green depending on your screen and your color scheme, but it's a shield or a badge with a check mark. If you hover over it, it may change a little bit. You can see that it fills in here. You may get some additional messaging. But if you're seeing this shield, you're in the secure version and you're okay to use secure data. If you're not seeing this shield, you may not be in the secure version. You may not want to use your secure data, right? There are some circumstances with mobile devices and so forth where the shield doesn't, 100% apply. But if you're talking about working with your laptop, you're talking about doing your work at work, you want that shield, okay, to use the secure version of Copilot. So let me real quick, I want to show you guys the secure version of Copilot, show you one quick thing, and then ask you to start doing some stuff. So let me get to Copilot. Sorry, that was bad piloting on my part. Okay. So here I am in Copilot. Yes, Christina.
Oh, that was actually an accident, but since I have you,
Oh, no
quick question. Just since we have people from around the world and doing things, as I've moved from one office to another, I've found that my Copilot works a little differently for me from government relations into the board office. Is that sometimes there are certain restrictions on what you can put in apply because those have been set by your leadership. For example, we don't put board documents in there, and we're restricted from doing so. So sometimes if you face a glitch, that may be on purpose. So as you said, keep reaching out to you.
All right, perfect. Yep. And there may be, to your point, there may be local, like team-specific guidance that goes on top of the general broader organizational guidance. All right, so one thing I would show you guys, here I am, and I'm going to do an example for you guys, but one thing that's interesting is Copilot's always changing, right? And so I think it was Monday I noticed this. There's this new design toggle where they're testing out a new design to Copilot. So you can turn that off while they're testing it and go back to the old design if you want. Or you can have that new design turned on, and that's why your screen may look a little different from mine when I'm demonstrating. Right? This is just it's a Microsoft product. They're forever changing it, and we kind of roll with that as we go. And so what I want to show you guys just a quick example. It's a very common time saver that people use. If you're ever in a position to generate meeting notes, Copilot can really help you with that as long as you have a transcript. Right? As long as you've got that Teams transcript available, you can get meeting notes in a hurry with Copilot. Let's show that to you guys. And so I've got some meeting notes, a transcript available here. It is about 7 pages long, about 2,400 words, give or take. And I want Copilot's help, getting some meeting minutes as a result of that. And so I've built this little prompt that says, please summarize the attached transcript in the form of meeting notes and provide them as a Word document. You could say as a PDF. Maybe you don't want it to give you a separate document. You want to copy and paste out of the response. Doesn't matter. But as an example, you can ask for a particular type of file. And then I'm going to give a little extra instructions. I'm saying we have multiple key team members who missed the meeting. So be sure to provide a thorough and well-organized accounting of what was discussed, as well as outcomes and action items. It's okay if the summary runs long because we need the missing team members to catch up. right? That might not always be the case. Maybe you want it to err on the side of brevity and a really high level summary. But the point is, you can tell it what you need, right? Do you need a ton of thoroughness? Do you need high level? Do you want bullets? Do you want a Word document? What do you need? Tell it what it is that you need. But then I have to give it this document, right? And there are different ways to do it. I could use this plus sign and go navigate, in my machine to find the file. I can also, drag it into the prompt. I can go here. I can do that and pull it in. If it's on SharePoint or OneDrive, you can put the link, the URL to where it's living into the prompt. You can do that as well. But the point is, you give it the information and you let it go. And it's going to think, it's going to take a while. It takes a little longer to do it when you ask for an output like a Word document than if you just want it to give you the results and then copy and paste that in. But you can see it's in here doing the work now. So while it does this is a good time for either questions or has anybody out there had any luck using Copilot for this kind of scenario? Looks like Omar might. Yeah, Omar.
Hey, Andy, quick question about the links on SharePoint. I have found that Copilot says it can't access them, and I'm in the secured version. Do you know why that would be the case? Is there something do we have to give permission to Copilot to see a document?
No, I mean, in my experience, Omar, that runs counter to what I've seen. It does make a difference as to whether it's a document you have access to, right? But I'm guessing you're asking it to use documents that you have access to. Right?
I'm actually thinking maybe it's my OneDrive, not SharePoint.
Okay. Yeah, that
Is
makes
that
sense
possible?
too. Yeah, because they're both, technically OneDrive is a SharePoint environment. It's confusing, but it should see stuff on your OneDrive if you share the link, and it should see stuff on a SharePoint site if you have access to it. So what you're describing, and we would probably need to look at it offline, if I tried to reach one of your SharePoint links that I don't have access to, I would expect for it not to see it. But if I'm giving it permission, if I'm asking it to look at something that's, in my OneDrive or it's a SharePoint document that I have access to, I would expect for it to see it. And that's without any sort of like settings or additional configuration to make that happen.
All right,
So we'll need
thanks.
to look at that. It sounds like it's not doing what I would expect it to do. So we will
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
look more closely.
It may be a little tweak. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, and was there another hand up? I thought I saw maybe one more. If not, that's okay.
Hi, Manish here. I raised my hand. So
Sure, yes.
I have put in transcript of the other organizations that I work with and I'm on meetings with them. They have a version of Teams Premium where Teams itself allows them to have a transcript and a summary. And I don't see the version of Teams Premium in our Teams profiles or Teams account. So what's the difference? Thank you.
No, that's a really, really good question. And then, I talked earlier about how it's, Copilot is Microsoft's digital assistant or generative AI tool, but there are different flavors of Copilot, right? And so we use Copilot Chat. There are even different levels of Copilot Chat, and we use here at the Red Cross currently, what we use is the most basic version, right? So it's called an unlicensed version. It comes with our Microsoft 365 package at no additional cost, right? And so it doesn't do, you will talk to people at other organizations who are using a higher level version of Copilot, and it can see all of their OneDrive documents. You can say to it, go find me any documents that have to do with volunteer retention or something like that. Or it can automatically go out and you see stuff baked into different features that we don't have. Right. So you have, just these different versions of Copilot, and that organization, it sounds like, has a different, more premium version than we have.
Thank you. That's
Oh,
helpful.
you're welcome. Yeah, yeah. And Garrett, did you have a hand up? Did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to call out a comment that Julie had made talking about the guidance and sharing some of these perspectives with other Red Crosses. And I just wanted to confirm, thinking about when you say other Red Crosses, are we talking about other international Red Crosses?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, I know that there are some conversations, but I I think too that that's definitely something that we would be interested in kind of making those connections if you all have those opportunities to help connect us as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's an interesting space, right? So it's a shared meeting with another organization. The data privacy element of that is it's a compelling question for sure. Others, I see another hand up. I thought I did.
We got another question. Do we have an understanding? This is from Becky. Do we have an
Mhm.
understanding of the impact on resources, water, energy consumption, Red Crossers use for the use of AI?
Yeah, I would say for that, the sustainability team has FAQs on that available out on one source. And so we can point you to those, and that they're a better source of that than we are. But the same sustainability team does think about that. They are monitoring this, and they have their viewpoint or opinion on that. So we will get that into chat either during the session or after, but it is definitely something that they are looking at.
And also, too, we do have a talk tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern with Noel Anderson, who's the Chief Sustainability and Operations business operations officer, and he'll be kind of talking a little bit about that as well. But I'll go ahead and put the link for that resource in the chat.
Oh,
And
thank
then
you,
we've got
Garrett.
another question as well
Mhm.
from Banu.
Hi, this is Banu. I have used Copilot for, like checking the any emails that are missing to respond back or so. It works great. One quick question that I have is in Power BI
Mhm.
desktop, do we have that option of Copilot? But I do see it's disabled, but I do see only one option that prepare data for AI in the Power BI desktop. Just curious to know if you can throw some light on that.
Oh, happy to. This is much like my answer to the prior question. That's an additional Copilot feature or tool, which is having it active within Power BI, and that's not something that our organization has. All of these things, like that version of that feature of having Copilot baked into Power BI, and kind of the more premium version of Copilot, they've all been sort of tested proof of concept with a tiny little subset of licenses in the organization. And the question becomes, is there hard ROI, right? Is there a hard return on investment? Because all that stuff costs extra money. And so the question becomes, at what point is the juice worth the squeeze, right, to pay for these additional features? But right now, where that rests is that's an additional feature that we don't have at the Red Cross.
Got it. Thank you. And one follow-up question, like what
Mhm.
major Copilot features are, expected in the coming months? Or, I have seen this slide, currently the Copilot
Mhm.
features. So what would be like in the coming months or, moving forward, are there any expected Copilot features for Red Cross that we implement?
For our version, I mean, the one we were waiting on is it doing a little better job of looking across our inboxes and calendars. And it seems like it is doing a better job of that now than it was doing before. I don't know if we're all the way there with what they promised on that, but that was one that they had said is coming. There are people doing, it is doing better. Previously, it could only really comment on the one email thread that you had your cursor on or that you had selected. Now it's looking beyond that some. But beyond that, I'm not aware of anything new and critical that's coming up soon.
Got it. Thank you.
Although apparently there's this new interface, so there's always that that's thrown on us as of this week. All right, these are great questions. Thank you guys for the questions. Notice here's my download just to kind of close the circle on this demonstration. So I can click that link. Here's my Word document, giving me an executive summary, key discussion topics, different topics. And remember, I asked it to be thorough, right? And it's kind of excessively thorough here per what I asked. Right, and I can download this. I can, save it separately. Make sure it's right. You always want to vet what it gives you. We'll talk more about that in a second. But you saved me a ton of time, assuming that most of what here is accurate and gets at what I needed. I've got this ready to go, in a matter of minutes instead of spending, 45 minutes to an hour pulling something like this together. All right, let's get you guys into Copilot. So let me get back to our presentation here. Here's the first thing I would ask you guys to do, because this is one of the ways that it can help you. So you guys are each, imagine you are responsible for monthly reporting that requires a colleague to provide key status updates, right? You're dependent on that colleague to do your reporting, but they often forget or deprioritize providing those updates, right? So every month you've got this hassle. Go to the secure version of Copilot, make sure you're in the secure version as part of this exercise, and just ask it to draft an email message to that colleague, asking them to give you these updates by the 5th business day of every month. Okay, give that a try. This could be a tricky email to write. See if you can't get a little help from Copilot. Take a few minutes on this. Let us know how it goes. Feel free to put your responses into the chat, or to even speak up and read your response if you prefer to do that.
Well, while they're doing that, Andy, I know that we moved on. Jafar did have a question. I just want to go ahead and give the space back to Jafar if we got a minute.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Yeah. So my question is, sometimes I use Copilot for data analysis, also data cleaning, but I found that sometimes they make up some data, they make some mistakes in the analysis table. So it's simple analysis like your analysis, or sometimes some statistical analysis. But I found that there are sometimes they are misinterpreting or also giving my wrong analysis table. Is there any tips and tricks or process to ensure that Copilot will not make this type of mistakes or not provide the wrong information?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You're anticipating where we're going, right? So we should get there before the end of this session. To answer your question, yeah, sometimes it hallucinates. That's kind of the term of art when it gets stuff wrong. And it is, of course, always incumbent on us to check, right? To do some checking, some vetting once it gives us a response. But there are things you can do in your prompt to help prevent it, and we will talk about those shortly.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. That's a great question. It's a really important question.
Yeah, they already gave me some wrong table and diagrams.
We have stories. It's happened to me for sure. I've seen some sketchy stuff come back. All right, as you guys work through this prompt, if you get a good response, go ahead and paste it into the chat, or otherwise let us know. Oh, there's one. Susan shared one. Nice. Sean, thank you. You guys are seeing some responses here. We'll give you another minute on this. This is one use case. You've got a difficult message to share. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with someone. Maybe it's a written communication, a Teams message, an email, and you just need a little help getting it going. This Copilot can help you with that. It can also help you on the other end, right? Maybe you write it yourself and then you check it or manage the tone, soften the tone, make the tone more professional and so forth. You guys are doing great. Thank you. All right, so that's Excellent. Thanks for sharing your responses. And this is, this is one of the ways that we can use Copilot. But you can use it for a lot of different stuff. This is kind of a short list, right? You can do research with it. How do you do a certain thing in Power BI or in Excel? How can you more effectively lead a virtual meeting? It can draft content. Word for word content. Now, it can give you flow. It can give you themes. Tone, I already spoke to tone. It's good at that. It's really good at summarizing, right? So maybe you read that article in advance of a meeting, but you read it a week before the meeting, and now the meeting's 10 minutes away, and you need a quick summary to remind you of what you read. It can do that summary for you. We talked about classifying with marketing and communications, how it can take information from surveys and bucket it out and make it actionable. So this isn't a full list, but it can do a wide range of things for you. And as you guys work together and share with one another how you're using it, you can help yourselves as well. All right. Here's the next one that we ask you guys to do. It's a little different scenario. You've got a team discussion coming up about cross-training. Okay, you want to lead a team discussion on cross-training needs and opportunities. Ask Copilot to draft discussion questions that will support you in that meeting. Okay, take a few minutes and do this. And again, share with us, what you learned or what it gives you back.
Got a couple good ones coming in already.
Awesome. I see one from Jafar.
Got that
Excellent.
one as well. Yeah, here they go.
And I mean, this is an example of, it's giving you questions. And of course, you guys are going to take these and your team, right? And this one makes sense. This one doesn't. You're going to vet what it gives you and use what's relevant, right? It's up to you. It's your meeting, right? But hopefully, what this tool can do is perhaps help you get ready for that meeting more quickly or more effectively. And so you can ask for this kind of help. Excellent. We'll give you another minute or two to give this a try for those of you still working on it. But these are great. Thank you guys for doing these and for sharing. All right. So you guys have already been prompting Copilot, right? You've written a couple of prompts. You saw the prompt that I had written about the meeting notes. And, entering a prompt is kind of as simple as asking a question, right? But it is a skill you can develop, right? You're going to get better at this as you do it. But here's some guidance. Here's some starter guidance around prompting. And per the question that came in earlier, we're going to get into some more advanced guidance in a minute, including, how you can mitigate against or try to prevent hallucinations as much as you can, right? So this is initial guidance around prompting. And so the overarching guidance is you want to prompt Copilot like you're talking to a person more than like you're entering a Google search. Okay, generally speaking, additional guidance is more effective than less guidance. Okay, and I am a committed kind of less is more person. I believe that brevity is the soul of wit, right? But when you're talking to these generative AI, digital assistants, more can be more. Okay, because you're giving them additional context and additional guidance to get closer at what it is that you need. So that's overarching guidance to keep in mind. Other things to keep in mind. One, expect to iterate, right? You're very often not going to get precisely what you need on the first pass. Okay, it may give you more than what you asked for, and you need a briefer response, or you need a more formal response because it's an executive audience. Or, and this has happened to me plenty, I thought I gave it clear guidance, but I didn't really explain what I needed, and then I have to clarify that. So you can continue to follow up and ask it questions to get at what you need. That is very normal. All right, so you should expect to iterate. That's kind of the price of admission. You want to pursue clarity and specific. This is a rubric. It's not the end all be all prompting rubric. There are lots of these out in the world. Some of you may have ones that you like in addition or better than this one. Feel free to share them in chat. But you can do this sort of thing. Give it a goal. What is it you want? Give it a context. Why do you need it? Who's involved? Who's the audience? What are your expectations? Do you want an authoritative tone? Do you want a light tone? Do you want a bulleted list? Do you want a set of numbered steps? Do you want a PDF file? What are your expectations? And then what source or sources do you want it to rely on? Sometimes you want it to go out and look all over the internet, and that's fine. But if you've got an authoritative source that you use in your field or sources, you can tell it, use these. Okay, and that can help combat prompt hallucinations as well. All right, you can tell it where you want it to go get stuff. So this kind of building out of your prompt can be really helpful. Now, as an asterisk, if all you're really asking for is a reminder of an Excel formula, you don't need to give it all this stuff. But if you tell it what column you're working with, then it can give you the formula specific for that column, okay, which can be helpful. So additional context, really, really helpful. Delimiters can help you out. When we say delimiters, we're talking about things like quotation marks or asterisks or carets, things that set off one piece of text from the rest. And very often that distinguishes input from instructions or identifies the sections of a long prompt. So if I wanted to, prompt it about, what's going on with the butterfly effect, I would put butterfly effect in quotation marks just to make it very clear what it is that I'm asking about. Specifying a structure can help. I've kind of spoken to that. Do you want 2 paragraphs? Do you want no more than 500 words? You can give it that kind of specificity. And you can also provide examples, and that can be really helpful. Right? Say you've got a successful communication that worked for an audience, and it's on one topic, and now you want another communication that's like that, but on a different topic. You can feed it that first one. You can either copy and paste it into your prompt or attach it like I showed you with the transcript and say, give me another one, sounds like this one, okay, but is on this separate topic. Okay, so you can give it examples, and that can be really helpful as well. And so what I'm going to ask you to do now is iterate on that prior prompt, right? The one about the team discussion of cross-training. Try to get a little better response. Right? Maybe you want to specify the output that you want. Maybe you want to specify the number of questions that you need. Maybe you want to give it a little more information about your team. How many people are on the team? What do they do? Give it a little more info. You can either start with a brand new prompt or just respond to what it gave you and give it a little more information and see if you can't get an optimized response back. So give that a quick try if you would. So Garrett dropped the cheat sheet, the prompt engineering cheat sheet into the chat. Thank you, Garrett.
Oh, these are nice.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Work, Sean. Right, take a few more minutes with this one. And the takeaway here is kind of twofold, right? It's part of it is that additional context can help. The more you give it about what you need, the better your response is going to be, or more in keeping with what you need. And then the other thing is you're often not going to get it just right the first time, right? Maybe it's something you did, maybe it's something the tool did, but you can continue to follow up and work for what you need. All right. I think I'm going to get the next one is another exercise. Yes. Okay. So here's another one. We'll give you guys one more, and then we'll talk about some other hallucinations and those sorts of things. This is one of those where it can also help you just like with quick stuff that you need in a hurry. That one thing that you've forgotten how to do that you just do every 4 months and you just can't quite remember how to do it. So here's your scenario for this one. So you're in a Teams meeting, it's you, your boss, a couple other colleagues, you're talking about this spreadsheet. And then column H, has these values between 1 and 10. And your boss wants some visualization. Okay, he wants to see where the high values, which are 9 or higher, medium values, which is 6 through 8.99, or low, which is 0 through 5.99. Your boss says, hey, can you do that? Can you color code these values into high, medium, and low? And if you're like me, you probably don't have that at the ready. So go ahead, just swivel to Copilot and give it the situation and say, how can I apply conditional formatting to this column? Okay, in order to meet these specs. This is just Copilot helping you out in a jam, helping you out with that day-to-day stuff that you otherwise might have had, do a Google search, maybe look at some videos, maybe apply this general guidance to a particular column. See if you can't get maybe column-specific guidance around applying conditional formatting in this circumstance. Jafar, nice. Look at that. Sean's on it. Oh, you guys are killing it. All right, we're getting some solid guidance here around conditional formatting. Take another minute or two with this. All right. Excellent, guys. Thank you. So that's, just another example. I got to tell you, so I use it, Copilot, and it's, we've used it in these kind of bigger projects. I talked about that blood drive earlier, but this is a really common use case for me, right? I do just enough in Excel and Power BI to be a little dangerous, and it just saves me all kinds of time when I go to do those things. So this is another good use. All right, so let's soldier on. I think I'm actually going, in the interest of time, I'm going to go buy this one. One thing it can do for you is it can also role play. So if you've got, a challenging discussion coming up with a coworker or maybe somebody on your team, if you're a people manager, you can ask it, you can give it the circumstances, ask it to role play as that other person and practice a conversation or ask for some guidance going into that conversation. Okay, I'm going to just, because of time, I'm just going to go past this one for now and talk about hallucinating. We got a really good question earlier about hallucinating. So when we're using Copilot Chat, or in your personal life, you're using Chat GPT or what have you, you want to exercise caution, right? Because it can hallucinate or confidently state things as true that are in fact false, right? Most of us know somebody who is always certain but not always right, right? And that's kind of Copilot. That's kind of these digital assistants. They will confidently tell you something that isn't so. Okay, so that's a risk, and that's something we have to be smart about. And among the things it means is that we have to vet what it gives us before we use it. We can't just blindly copy and paste whatever it gives us and go use that, right? You have to take it, is it accurate, and then you make it your own, put it in your voice and so forth. Bias, we talked about bias earlier. That can manifest itself with generative AI as well. If we're not using, we talked about this, we're not using the secure version. There's a risk of data leakage, so we have to use the secure version when we're using sensitive data. And this is really a feature, not a bug. It can generate images that seem like real photos, but they aren't. And of course, we have governance around that we talked about earlier with that appendix that I shared with you about acceptable and prohibited uses of Gen AI. And so a little bit more on hallucinating. And this is just a time that it hallucinated for me. I was doing it, doing one of those help me out kind of things. And I was asking it to give me the click-by-click details for taking a report from one Power BI file and posting it in a separate file. I just wanted to take this report from a dev version and put it into a production version. And so I asked it. And it gave me what it called clear click-by-click steps. And it told me to go down to the bottom to the page tab, right click and click copy. And I went to do that and there was no copy option, right, on when I right clicked. And so, so I say to it, I gave it a try. I don't see a copy option. I see these other things. What should I do instead? And then it tells me, hey, this is a limitation. You're not doing anything wrong. Power BI does not support copying an entire report via right-click copy. In spite of what I said before, that's not what it does. Okay, and it tells me a different way to do it, and this way actually worked, right? So it can be wrong. So we have to be smart about what we use. We can't just take everything it gives us as wholly accurate, and we're responsible for what it gives us. But what can we do when we're prompting to try to prevent that? And so this is kind of back to answer that question that came up, a little earlier. Here are some things you can do to help prevent hallucinations. Right? One is, and we mentioned this earlier, you can ask it to provide sources and vet those sources, or you can specify the sources it should use. Okay, rely solely on this database or this sheet that I'm giving you, relying solely on this authoritative website, answer this question. Okay, so you can do that. This next thing is going to sound maybe like overkill, but you can tell it not to make stuff up. Explicitly tell it, do not invent information, and give it something to do if it's unable to find what you're looking for. If you're unable to find what I need, if you're unable to answer this question, tell me why, or reply with I don't know. And the reason that matters is that these tools, what they're most interested in the world is trying to please you. right? That's what they want to do more than anything. So if you ask it to do something or go find something and it can't find it, in order to please you, it might just make something up to make you happy. So if you're telling it not to invent information and giving it something else to do, there's another way for it to make you happy. There you go. Okay, so you can do this, and I do this often. Okay. If it's a complex task, you can break it into separate steps, and that helps prevent hallucinations. It doesn't try to do everything all at once. Other things you can do, you can ask it to explain its reasoning, right? If it's having to think things through or reason, ask it to explain itself. Okay. And you can also ask it to provide a confidence level for its assertions. Okay. And these things can constrain it and keep it from hallucinating. Okay. It's going to tell you, I have high confidence in this, I have medium confidence in that. It's having to engage in some self-analysis. Okay. So these are things you can do to help prevent hallucinations. The other thing I would say about prompting is if you're prompting with data, okay, maybe you've got an Excel sheet that you want a little help with. Always make sure you're in the secure version of Copilot. You always want high quality data, right? Because garbage in, garbage out. If it's analyzing bad data, that's of limited value. If it's possible, go ahead and limit your data set, right? So if you've got a data set that's organization wide and you're interested in a particular subset of that information, a particular region, or what have you, if you can limit it before you give it to Copilot, that can only help. Okay, it can filter, right? You can tell it if you've got organization-wide data and you only want to see Asia Pacific data, or you only want it to consider Asia Pacific data, you can tell it to only consider Asia Pacific data, but you can also prevent it from having to do that step. And particularly if you've got a great big data set, that can help. Okay. And it can, our version of Copilot, this unlicensed version, its context window is only so big, right? It can't handle millions and millions of rows of data. So if you've got a big data set, you might have to chunk that into smaller ones, ask it to analyze each separately, and then combine those analyses. All right. And so I kind of did this in preparation for this session. I did a little bit of data analysis, right? So let me show you what I did. I've got this data, and this is our data. This is training data. And this is a report we pull out of Edge. We've got a number of courses. It includes our Intro to AI course, right? It also includes these data literacy courses that we talked about. And this is, I don't know, it's like 45, how many rows? We've got like 4,600 rows here, give or take. So this is a big old, not a huge data set at all, but it's, more than what I needed for what I was going to ask Copilot. So I filtered that and I created a sheet that was only about AI at the American Red Cross and introduction. So I took that initial step of filtering. I had the luxury of doing this in advance. All right, so now I've got a data sheet here that's only telling me about people who have engaged with AI at the American Red Cross and introduction. Okay. And so what I did was I was thinking about you guys. And so I built this prompt asking for a little analysis about, who's completed this course, how many people have completed this course from SAF and ISD, right? And so I built this prompt. It says, look, the attached spreadsheet features information regarding learners who have completed a web-based course, and I give it the title, relying solely on the information on the sheet, right? I'm combating hallucinations here. Provide the information specified below. Do not invent any data, information, or context. Again, trying to combat hallucinations. I give it just a little bit of information about the sheet, and then I'm going to tell it how to process, right? I'm breaking the steps down a little bit. It could have probably figured some of this out on its own, but I'm kind of taking any mystery away. So I'm saying, determine the number of learners from international services by counting the unique values in column B, where the value in column N is international line of service, right? This sheet has a line of service breakdown, and one of those lines of service is international. It also has HS. It doesn't have SAF as a separate line of service, right? This is just kind of the way Edge works. So to get at SAF, I said determine the number of learners from SAF by counting the unique values in column B, where the line of service is HS line of service, and the value in column S, the cost center, begins with SAF. And then to tell me humanitarian services not from either, I want you to find the one where the line of service is HS line of service and the value in column S does not begin with SAF. So I'm just telling it how to do its work here. And then for output, I wanted 3 different sections. I wanted a summary, I wanted cost center details, and patterns to consider. And I gave it specs on that, like how to build the tables, what columns I want, where to go to get those values. And so I ran that prompt, right? And it gave me this. Okay, so here's the prompt. Wait a minute, wrong sheet, or wrong instance of, let me do this. I can just go here. All right, so here's my prompt. I showed you the sheet so you could see it better, but it's copied and pasted in here. And it churned on that. And it gave me what I wanted, right? So it gave me a summary, the number of learners who have completed that course from international, from SAF, and from HS, that from neither international nor SAF. So it gave me that. It gave me a cost center breakdown by each. So first for international, then for SAF, then for humanitarian services other. And then for patterns to consider, it's telling me that, most of the stuff is coming from HS other, okay? That on the international side, it's mostly from one cost center, which is preparedness, ARC rules, and tools. And that on the SAF side, it's evenly distributed. Gives me some cost center concentration patterns, some time. And it didn't really find much in the terms of timing. It seemed like there was maybe a push within an international services team, and it gave me some outliers. And, then it'll offer some additional stuff. And I took it up on that. I said, can you give me a timeline of completions by group? And it made a big deal out of executing this, but look, the link didn't work, right? This happens, right? It doesn't do what it says, might hallucinate. So what did I do? I followed up. I'm unable to download the chart. Could you try again? And it gives me the chart. Okay, so it said it did it, failed to do it. I asked it again and it did it. So sometimes you have to iterate like that. That's part of it. And then finally, I asked it, do you have any suggestions for leveling up the completion rates? And then it gave me a bunch of suggestions. So I won't make you look at those. I know we're almost out of time. But the takeaway there is, you can prompt in such a way as to minimize hallucinations, right? As well as check those on the back end. And you can share data with it and ask it to help you make sense of data. Okay, so that's another use case. That's a lot of people get some value from that kind of prompting. So, that's really, I know we're out of time. The last thing I would share with you, we'll put this stuff in chat for you. We got a bunch of resources that you can look at out on one source. We've got the Viva Engage AI at ARC community. It's kind of cooking right now with World AI Day happening tomorrow and some of the preliminary things there. We do have our introductory course that launches through Edge called AI at the American Red Cross Introduction. And we do have a Confluence page that gives you the AI and data literacy courses. And Dan, I'll get this deck after we do this session and the one tonight. I'll get you a PDF version of the deck that you can share with the group.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, and really that's it. So thank you guys. Thank you guys very much. Garrett, anything that we need to sew up before we let these nice folks go?
Nope, nothing else to add here.
All right, well, that was great. Thank you guys, for being here, participating, sharing what you found. We appreciate that. We've got some takeaways. Omar, I'm interested in helping you out with the thing that you've run into. And Garrett, I'll follow up with you. I know you shared some stuff during chat that we promised, but anything that's pending, we'll be sure to follow up.
Great. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Very well crafted and thought through presentation, and well attended. I'm sure. Sometimes you get the people dropping off, and everybody stayed to the end. So really appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much. Good to see you. Mike Peoples, pleasure. See you.
Thank you. Bye.